Word.
The Warriors Conference called it.
What about that?
Why you're so?
Okay. 2 questions. One was, what am I going to do with the money for the school? And the answer to that is build a school. I don't know how else to answer that. We're going to use the money to build a school. We're not doing St. Paul's anymore. So we're looking at other places. So build a school. As far as the Warriors Conference, I wasn't invited. So that's why I wasn't there. So. No problem. Good looking out.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Tell me, have you been threatened or harassed for your
have I been threatened or harassed for my speaking? I've had some difficulty from the white authorities within psychology. I'm currently being investigated by the Pennsylvania Board of Psychology on the complaint of Negroes, by the way. The FBI directly and indirectly have kind of let me know they're watching my steps. The black bourgeoisie don't like me at all, but that come with the territory. But the answer is yes. On a light level, yes.
My question is, how do you go about your research on finding certain statistics or certain things about what gives white supremacy is pretty much stand, or how do you go about looking for those type of facts?
A lot of the information I get on white supremacy and eugenics comes straight from the fathers of white supremacy. And a lot of that material comes from the 19th and 20th century. A lot of the books that were written by the early fathers of the eugenics movement, founding fathers of the United States, many of America's leading social scientists in the 18th and 19th century. A lot of it is there, but because white scholars don't write as aggressively racist today as they did 200 years ago, it's hard for you to get true white thought about the black man in books anymore. You almost have to go back to the classic books where where it was not politically incorrect to be an overt racist. Now it's politically incorrect to be an overt racist. Back then it was not. So a lot of the original material on white racism, what they think, how they carry out their plans, you're going to get it from 17th through 19th century white social scientists. So you want to hit the library and the used bookstore. The used bookstore is a more viable resource than the new bookstore, because most of the books you get in the new bookstore now, they're the ones that are considered safe. You got to hit the used bookstores. My favorite bookstores are the used ones. You get classics in there, out of print books about white supremacy, and out of print books about classical Pan-Africanism as well. But you got to hit the used bookstores, and you save a lot of money too. Yes, the question referred to sources for a lot of the information that I present on white supremacy, racism, eugenics. And so the used bookstores are the best place to get that stuff. Voting. Here's the thing about voting. We can use it as a strategy as everyone else uses it, but the mistake that we make is thinking that the individual black vote can be of any use. The individual black vote means nothing. It has to be a black vote for the black man and woman. Minorities, numerical minorities, the only way they can use voting to exercise any leverage over the political economic process is if they do it together, because the numbers ain't large enough. My problem with all the people who preach voting as a way of life, none of them talk about organizing the black vote, if you notice that. None of them do. That's the contradiction of the black vote movement. None of them talk about organizing the black vote, which means you're actually an enemy of your people rather than an argument for your people. Because if you have black people going out to vote and we're not organized collectively on a platform on which those votes rest, the vote benefits the power structure more than it benefits us. Because it's going to get the white man elected. It's going to get the bourgeois elected, but it's going to get you nothing because we didn't organize the votes ahead of time. So I'm for working on an agenda that says, okay, we're going to organize the black vote and use it as a strategy, not a way of life. And before we use voting as a strategy, our people have to be educated about the fact that voting does not get you money. A lot of black people believe voting will improve their economic situation. Totally false. Money controls the vote. Votes don't control money. And black people have been taught that voting controls money. No, it don't. Money controls the voting. We look at the mafia. How does the mafia get things done through the politicians? They ain't voting. They show up with briefcases full of money. How do the unions do it? Briefcases full of money. Now, they might still vote, but they understand that money runs politics. And if you want something done, you don't have to vote for it, you pay for it. It don't matter who wins the election. I'm going to pay the winner to carry out my agenda, period. And that's how black people have to get organized. Because if we had the money to pay off judges, to pay off politicians, if we had the money, we would be so much further along now than we would have been at any other time in our history if we got gangster with the political electoral system. That's where we need to be going. Organize that money, don't matter who wins. Let them fight over that. Democrat, Republican, don't none of us give a damn about us. But whoever wins, show up with a briefcase full of money. This is what we need. How much is going to cost? This conversation never took place. That's how politics is played in America. It's the only way. Appreciate the love on it. Exactly. Exactly. Queen, how we doing?
For the youth that'll be attending your school, do you have any plans? I'm sure, as you know, kids who grew up in foster care and group homes, do you have any plans on getting some of them to continue school? Because I think they need it the most, your guidance the most.
Excellent question. I'm glad you asked it. Do I have any plans to include foster and homeless children in the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy? One of the benefits of having a residential academy when we get to that stage, because as I said earlier, St. Paul's is still a possibility, but not a priority. But the long-term vision is still a residential school. The benefit of the residential, because I've had a lot of parents say, why does my child have to go away to school? Why can't they just go to school 9 to 5 and come home to me? And obviously my answer to that is you're the one who's turning them into a Negro. And if we want to save him from becoming a Negro, we got to get him out of your house, right? But they don't think about the children you just spoke about. What about all those homeless black children who would love to be able to live in a dormitory at their school? What about all the foster kids who can't wait to get the hell away from the foster parents who only got them in their house so they can pay their bills? The group home children. So if you look at all the African children we have who are homeless, a residential academy is a blessing to them. So I think one of the benefits of FDMG, the residential model, is we can take care of so many black kids who don't have a home. So without question, I want to target that population. I would have to have conversations with Child Protective Services. With my psychological background, I could probably get somewhere with them. But I would have to sit down with them and say, listen, I would like to invite those children to come to my school, and I need you to pay their tuition, which is cheaper than what you're paying for them to be foster cared and everything else. And I think a lot of them would go for it. The only takeaway, two things. Number one, they're not going to agree with my Pan-Africanism, obviously, my political position. The other issue is bottom children coming to my school. That's taking money out of the mouths of white people who exploit homeless black children through the foster care system. So they might push back because they say if all the homeless and foster kids are going to Umar's school, there won't be none left for the white people to use to get paid. So that might be the potential drawback. But I really do think 9 times out of 10, most state foster care programs, child protective services, agencies would allow the kids to come to me. Because remember, Who's the hardest child to give up for foster care and adoption? The teenage black child. So I do think a lot of them will let them come my way. My brother.
How you doing, sir?
All right.
Some people on Facebook want to know the money that you have raised. What are you doing it? What are you doing it with it right now?
Okay, nothing. I shouldn't be doing nothing with it.
Yeah, like some of the people was asking, like,
Yeah, the brother asked earlier. Here's the thing with that. Black people crazy. If you have a bank account called the Frederick Dulles and Marcus Garvey International Leadership Academy, and if every check and money order gets written to the Frederick Dulles and Marcus Garvey Leadership Academy, and we don't have a school that we bought yet, I shouldn't be touching that money. The money is sitting until we get enough to be able to buy a piece of property.
She doesn't really feel appropriately thanked for that. Like, we really haven't shown collectively now, we really haven't shown black women the honor and respect that's due to them, even the nasty ones. Okay? They too have their story. I just think that we as black men have to do a better job with how we interact with the women and how we validate them. Because we also come from a pain position with things we've been through with our baby mamas and ex-wives and moms too. So you got trauma meeting trauma, and it doesn't work out good for anybody. I would end it by saying this. I think that black men have to come together amongst ourselves and talk about our hurt and get all that energy out. And I think sisters have to do it as well. And then I think we have to have opportunities to talk to each other about how we feel about each other. Black men need to be honest about what they feel about black women. Black women need to be honest, and then we need to look at how we can improve that situation. But the bottom line is this. If you are still hurt, you're going to be afraid to trust. That's why we have so much untrustworthiness in the relationships. It ain't because he's not a good guy or shit. You've been hurt. Okay? In order to love, you have to trust. And most of us ain't willing to let down our guard again. We're wounded trying to love somebody, which is almost impossible to happen. So I think that until we deal with our hurt, we should save anyone we might consider dating the pain of a distraught relationship by staying the hell away from them until we're much better. Because hurt people, and an emotionally wounded person is a spiritual vampire. They cannot support their partner, they can only suck from them. And we got a lot of vampires out there. We need to have romance clinics to rehabilitate the sick ass folk who keep on getting hurt in relationships. Yeah. This should be a rehab, a dater's rehab, where you check in and stay there until you work through all your past pains.
Come on, sisters.
I got Dr. Umar love on love. So I'm one of the good ones.
Yeah, both sides. Both sides.
Dr. Umar, thank you for coming out.
Thank you, my brother.
You have quite a bit of capital on your hand right now. Mm-hmm. And Malcolm X said back in 1963, before World War II, he made us love the Russians, love the Chinese, hate the Japanese, and hate the Germans. After World War II, he flipped it on us. To make it short, he said, we need our own media. What you said, everybody needs to hear tonight, but they ain't gonna hear it. This is not even a scratch of the people that need to hear it. I don't think anybody would mind if you took a few thousand and gathered all our talent together and started your own internet TV. I'll pitch in every week. I don't care, and I know everybody else would. What do you think about that?
I mean, I like the idea. It's something I definitely plan to build within the confines and structure of the school itself, but I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a look at doing it even before the school comes, because I do think it's something that's important, it's necessary. But again, I'm going to go back to post-traumatic slavery disease. Are black people going to support the network?
Yes, I guarantee it. Everybody would. Can I say something else?
For sure.
Look at Brother Rich. Brother Rich Underground. He gets something. Underground, the
Okay.
radio program, he gets
Okay.
like 200,000 people. Professor Griff and Zaza get 200,000 people.
Okay.
So if all of them just give $1, how much is that? Bam. And some of them going to give more than $1. When people see, when you build it, they will come. That's what Garvey did. Even if you just sold, if we put together and put some stock certificates, we bring up the black stir line. And
True,
sell them $100
true.
a pop. I want my I want number 13. I want to sell 12 and give me number 13. 100, I want 500. Everybody's stuff is growing. When it's built, they gonna come. Trying to buy 3-4 shares. Garvey gave us the key to how to do it.
Yeah.
The UNIA still exists. Let's Bogart it, take it over and run it correctly.
That's a whole lecture by itself.
We got all this
The
talent.
modern history of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Lord.
Think about it. All
No, good stuff. I'm gonna talk on that. We gonna talk on that.
Baba TV,
I like what you're speaking.
Sonetter TV. Everybody, if we bring this together, we can't be stopped. We got all the talent. We got this brother with the radio voice.
He said with the radio voice. We have Dr. Umar here. Get his voice.
Just put that together and we'll knock them out. And at the same time,
Yeah, we gotta look at that.
we'll expose the boule that's really keeping us down.
True. And then you gotta worry about the FCC. But yeah, I think we can. Yeah, I think it's doable.
Okay.
I'm gonna look into that. We're gonna talk some more because you got some insight in that. We're gonna talk some more. Well said. Anyone else? Yes, sir, Baba.
What did you, yesterday was the Ebonics.
Yesterday was the Ebonics Conference.
What was your focus on?
My presentation at yesterday's Ebonics Conference focused on the ramifications of the legitimization of Ebonics. In other words, I talked about how the reasons why white people are fighting against Ebonics is because if they legitimize Ebonics, it will undermine the purpose of high-stakes testing, which is to ensure black kids do less well than whites, to exclude them from opportunity and access to resource, because the number one weapon of the high-stakes test is language. So imagine if the IQ test questions were asked in black language. Imagine if the achievement test questions were asked in black language. Imagine if the math questions were asked in black language. You remove the number one barrier to black achievement, and that is understanding the language in the questions. So white people have to fight against the legitimization of Ebonics, because otherwise it will undermine high stakes testing, and our kids might start scoring higher than their children. Second, special ed. Special education is basically learning disabilities based on language. 85% of special ed evaluations are for what? The reading disability. But if the child is allowed to read in black language, if the child is allowed to study in black language, what happens to your special ed rate, and how much money do school districts begin to lose from special ed hustlers? And then if you legitimize Ebonics as an official language, which it is, you legitimize African culture and African American culture as separate and distinct from European culture. And if you're going to say Ebonics is a language, also the argument could be brought up, because every language belongs to a culture, that the assault on Ebonics parallels the assault on black culture, which means American society owes black people reparations to rehabilitate the damage that's been inflicted. So the legitimization of Ebonics brings forth the reparations argument. Also, if Ebonics is an official language, you have to hire people who know the language to teach the children. Schools are predominantly middle-class white females who don't know Ebonics, which means they would have to be replaced by sisters and brothers to teach it, which means you got to lay off white teachers and hire blacks because you have a new language that only blacks can teach. So by opening up the Ebonics door, you walk down 10 or 20 hallways that white people don't want to walk through. And then the last thing I would say, as I said yesterday, we need to have an Ebonics renaissance, an unapologetically African movement that publicizes Ebonics as a legitimate language. Now let me be clear, brothers and sisters, our children still need to learn English, because you got to be able to navigate the devil's system. So I don't advocate a system where they don't learn standard English, because you're living in a country where English is the dominant language and you're going to need that tongue to navigate.
But that doesn't mean you cannot affirm your own African dialect when you got here. In fact, in my book, and I'll stop on this one of the ironies of white racism during slavery was that they didn't want to educate the black man. If they educated us as soon as we got off the slave ship, you probably wouldn't even have Ebonics. There would be no traces of Africanisms in our language. But because they forbade us from learning their language, that only allowed us to preserve our own. Are y'all following me? So one of the unforeseen consequences of not educating the enslaved African was you allow his culture to live on. And that's why we still have the tongue with us now. Anyone else, fam? Because I know we're going to be wrapping up. Okay, we're going to take the brother and the sister. Y'all be the last two. Yes, sir.
In the so-called conscious community, there's a lot of division.
A lot of division in the conscious community. A lot of jealousy, a lot of envy.
A lot of that stems from religion. Moors, Hebrews,
Uh-huh.
all of that. How do we break down them barriers? For the people who are trying to build, how do we break down them barriers?
Look for people who don't have ideological and religious hang-ups. For example, my Moorish brothers in Norfolk, Virginia, I roll hard with them. They don't have ideological hang-ups. When I have my meeting of the mind, I get a mic to the leader of the Moorish movement down there. Because the brother's solid. He'll let me speak. You know what I mean? We roll like that. We understand we got some differences. But we understand that those differences are nothing compared to what we share. I got some Hebrew brothers who I ride with. Most Hebrews I can't because they want to force that, you know? I know some Moors who want to force that. But I know some who don't. I know some Nation of Islam folks who want to force that. But I got a lot of Nation of Islam brothers, they not. We cool. You Garvey, we Elijah, let's roll. I got New Black Panther. I ain't never had a Panther party. The Panthers are pretty about the people. I don't really get from them. You got to believe and stand for what we believe in order to be a part of us. And plus, we pretty much 100 on the square anyway, nationalism. But my thing is you got to seek out and find people who are serious enough to put the ideologies on the back burner for the sake of the people. Here's my thing. Dr. King and Malcolm, if they were willing to put their ideology on the back burner for the greater good of the people now, who are we not to? If King and Malcolm, two totally opposing ideological camps being represented, if they can put the ideology on the back burner, these are men whose lives was on the line working with each other. If they can do it, why can't we? So my thing is, we got to find folks who are willing to do that. The Panthers will do that. I know that. I work with them. Okay? I always do. I tell people from the gate, you don't have to be a Pan-Africanist for me to work with you. You got to be serious, and you have to not be about forcing your ideology on me. I don't need you to have my ideology to work with you. I do not have that hang-up. And I think that's why I'm able to build with so many different camps. You know, I got folks who I ride with from all the ideologies. There's none that's excluded in my own personal circle, but that's because I come to the table race first, African people first, not ideology first. And the conscious community needs to take a serious look at itself anyway, because it's becoming another mega church. Conscious community is a mega church. Like any church, you got 50 bishops and shit going around speaking, collecting money, and ain't nobody doing no work. That's the conscious community. And then people say, well, why we can't get the youth? You can't get the youth the same reason why the church can't get the youth. Because we ain't doing shit and they ain't doing shit. Now, it just so happens that our information might be accurate, but it ain't feeding nobody. It's not clothing nobody and not employing nobody. The people want services and opportunity, and all we got is information. The pastor runs around with the Bible, we run around with DVDs. What's the difference? Queen, last one for the night. Yes, we can get that presentation. Dr. Ernie Smith, who hosts the Ebonics Conference, I can reach out to him. If I'm going to give him about a week to put it together. If you text me in about a week, I'll reach out to him and see if I can get that out for you. All right. But family, stay in touch. I just met with some brothers tonight. We're going to try to do a conference with the Crips and Bloods out here. Okay? Then we want to do a black male conference also. So we're going to try to make that for Black History Month or March. So I should be back. I'm going to try to be back in LA every 3 months. You guys are one of my largest support bases. I tell the whole world that. LA, London, Chicago, the DMV, Detroit. And so I don't want to stay away 9 months like I did this time. So I'm going to try to make it at least once a season. I already told Brother Ali we're going to start looking for some other venues. We're going to keep on doing stuff with Blessed Love, obviously. This is the foundation, but we want to stretch out, because what I noticed is you have to do events in different places of the city, because for whatever reason, black people ain't comfortable everywhere. Just like in Detroit. If I do my event on the west side of Detroit, I'll see people I've never seen. If I do it on the east side of Detroit, another crowd. New York, Harlem crowd, Brooklyn crowd, the Queens people ain't necessarily coming over to Staten Island. You know what I mean? So we got to share that love by moving around. So if y'all know some places around LA that you think would be a good place to do an event, right there in the hood, a lot of black folk who need to be woke up, pass that on to me, text it to me, give it to Brother Ali, because I want to kind of do like a little tour so we can get around LA. You know what I mean? Let's go around South Central, do Watts, do Compton. Let's take the message to the people. So that's what we're going to be doing. But remember, brothers and sisters, every Tuesday morning, 6 to 8 a.m. Eastern Time, any questions, child mental health, education, call in and make sure you start sending them donation checks. You need the address, just text my phone. I don't care if it's $1. I've had people send me one. I had somebody send me an envelope full of pennies. And I didn't knock them because they might only have 30 pennies and they gave me 15. Okay, so whatever you can spare, send it, but we're going to get that school built. And I just like to say I never take the support and the love that y'all give me for granted. You understand? Not at all. So just keep that in mind when y'all come and y'all give me a pound and give me a positive remark. You don't understand how that stuff keeps me going, because it ain't easy doing what I got to do and being who I am, but y'all keep me going. So I just want to say thank you. And on that note, safe travels, and God willing, I'll be back in black